Hey, Jay Clark here. Our latest project is a Supermoto CRF 450. Supermoto is a really cool sport. Was really popular in the late 2000s. X Games, all that stuff going on, and then economy crashed, all kinds of things, and maybe it grew a little too fast. Now there's a big effort on the local level and getting a grassroots effort going with a good series. And so my buddy here's got a really cool bike. It was his motocross bike. It was a 2013 CRF 450. And now he's got a 15, he's going to ride in motocross. He's going to convert this bike into Supermoto. Many guys will, the original thought of Supermoto was you could convert your motocross bike and ride Supermoto one weekend and then convert it back to motocross the next weekend. Some people do that, but it's not totally practical because you have to switch a lot of parts, which you'll see in this video. To be really competitive, you want to switch your suspension, your brakes, all those types of things, wheels of course. So here's a look at everything we're going to do to make this bike competitive on the Supermoto circuit. Hey, so we're back here with our Supermoto project. Last time we showed this thing, it was a full motocross bike. We've converted it completely to a Supermoto bike. We're going to give you an inside look at everything these crazy Supermoto guys do to make these things work in dirt and asphalt conditions. X-Trig makes very trick clamps. They come in a 14 through 16 millimeter offset, and so with Supermoto racing, they bring the wheel way closer to the bike. These clamps are completely interchangeable from 14 millimeter to 16 millimeter. Both these are way more. Stock is on this bike, so it's around 20, 22. So this brings the front wheel closer. So by bringing the rake in on this bike, we get bigger contact area with the front tire, so a lot better grip in the turns. Okay. On the X-Trig clamps, they have really cool bar mounts that are rubber mounted here and to isolate any vibration. We're running 7/8 bars to try to keep the weight down, just a little thinner bar, and since we're not having the kind of crashes we would in, say, motocross, a thin stock 7/8 bar is sufficient with the Renthal 971 bend. One of the most important things on a Supermoto bike is being able to stop quickly. All the bikes can be fast since they're all big bikes, but huge braking power is a big deal. There's many companies out there within the motorcycle industry that sell Supermoto type brakes, Motomaster, Brembo, Golfer. This company, Behringer, is kind of one of the more higher end brakes. They have a 6-piston caliper, which is huge stopping power compared to, say, a stock CRF 450. The rotor is a cast iron rotor, so it actually wears and has tremendous grip. It's 310 millimeters. A large motocross bike is 270, so it's just way bigger than anything out there. And then up top, the master cylinder has a much larger piston to pump more fluid, so the entire brake system is much stronger than stock. This complete brake setup comes totally complete with your master cylinder up top, brake lever, steel braided brake line, the rotor, and the caliper, the 6-piston caliper. So complete, again, very high-end setup, but tremendous braking power is going to give you a big advantage in Supermoto. You can get away with the stock suspension on an entry-level Supermoto, but if you're wanting to compete on a higher level, you need to get your suspension revalved and maybe even springs done. For motocross, the suspension is very plush to maybe go over little bumps, braking bumps, acceleration bumps. You don't have those in Supermoto. You just have a couple small jumps on the dirt part and then smooth asphalt. So you want to prevent any of that small chattering. So Racetech set this stuff up perfectly for Supermoto for us. Okay, so one of the first things you notice about a Supermoto bike are the wheels and tires, of course, being kind of obnoxiously big and so forth compared to what you're used to seeing on a motocross bike. Up front, this bike has a 16.5 wheel that's 3.5 inches wide with a slick Dunlop up there. Provides really good traction on that asphalt, but of course in the dirt, that's where things get a little fun for the motocross guys, but not so much for the road race type guys. So good bite there. And the rear, this bike has a 17-inch rear with a 5-inch wide rim. The rim is Excel on both these and uses a Tusk hub, all custom built up here. Sometimes for additional bite in the dirt, we'll actually do some grooving of the tire to get a little bit more bite in the dirt, so you get a little more grab, can help you clear a little double that maybe someone else can't do. Toxic Racing makes a little guide that you bolt into your swing arm to try to keep the chain away from the tire and rim. With the foot pegs, you don't want to be as wide as you would be on a regular motobike because you're laying it over in the turns, so you need to shorten them up and not be as wide. In this case, Chuck at Metal Tech helped shorten up these titanium foot pegs. Both front and rear were using the Supermoto axle sliders to prevent any damage in case of a fall. In the rear, these replace the stock axle blocks. In the front, these are integrated into the front axle, and on the left side it replaces the stock OEM nut. Okay, so now for my favorite part, the motor. So on this bike, a stock Honda 450 nowadays, from 08 was the last year of the carbureted bike that actually had big power, big hit. From 2009 on, this bike's been fuel injected, doesn't have the big hit as the 08 bike did. So this bike needs more power, especially for Supermoto racing where we're wanting to be getting big top speeds and big power out of turns. So we added a big bore kit to this from Cylinder Works. That gives us some of that big power back, a stage 2 camshaft from Hot Cams. Also in the airbox, we've removed the backfire screen, give us a little better airflow. Partner that up with the FMF pipe. We've gone with a single system, mainly because of the clearance at the rear wheel. We had to space it out to one side, and that made it so that we wouldn't have any clearance issues with the rear wheel. All those motor mods together work very well. We've actually ran it with the stock mapping, and a mapped stock box with richer jetting worked very well. In this case, we actually mapped it for the Vortex ignition. That gives us a lot more premium mapping, and we're also able to advance the timing as well. On the motor, something that really helps with these bikes is to go through the throttle body. Injectioneering goes through, calibrates and cleans and sets up everything perfectly in the stock throttle body. So the gearing on this bike is made so this bike can reach speeds of up to 100 miles an hour or so. So we're on a 14 front and a 47 rear. The stock on these bikes is around 1348. So a big difference in your gearing, you're able to actually just run this thing out to big top speeds. For road racing and Supermoto conditions, whenever you're on asphalt track, they try to prevent any opportunity for oil to get on the course and make it slippery for anybody and cause any accidents. So you have to wire tie or silicone any types of bolts that would have access to oil. They want to prevent those from happening as much as possible. So we have the worst connection cool billet pieces on the brake reservoir, engine plugs on the engine, and you can see we've drilled and wired these or silicone them safely in place. So the front fenders on these bikes look a little bit funny to a lot of guys that aren't used to them. One of the reasons the main reason they cut these fenders is just because with the bike brought in, the rake brought in, and these different size wheels and tires, that the front fender would be hanging way over the tire and look kind of funny. And also for the rider, he'd be seeing that front fender tip more, kind of obscuring his view a little bit. This helps him feel a little bit more comfortable on the bike. A hole shot device just like the motocross one is what we use here from Works Connection on the Supermoto bike, because the starts, the front end will want to lift up. So if we tuck that down, it can keep it from lifting up, able to keep better traction to the ground all the way down the first straight. For the Henson setup, we went with their slipper clutch, which just works amazing. The slipper clutch really helps you be able to set up the bike for the corners really well. We got some custom graphics to match the rest of our design here. InStyle made us up some custom look, and we can represent all of our companies involved.